Hi.
Hi, darling. Okay. Okay.
You can put these down away if you don't want them on the recording.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so
I want to do welcome to country first.
yes, please.
So we're acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we're holding this little discussion today about Scorpio, and we're in Palawa country, and you know the local tribe.
Yes, Lumaranatana is the area that I live upon.
And so we're paying respects to the elders of this country and also to their descendants, those living and those that are emerging as leaders. And we thank them for the privilege of working here and being here.
And living in this wonderful landscape that I live in.
It's a gorgeous place. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. I've got to have a window there. No, I don't have to. Okay. All right, so how do I make it move? Okay, so this is a standard one that I put at the beginning of my presentations because I like to remind people the dynamic that astrology uses. So the planets are essentially the actors or the archetypes that we live with. The signs that those planets are in are the costumes that they wear. So we see them changing personalities as such as they transit the sky, and the houses that you find those planets in your chart are the stage at which they give you their personality.
Stage at which those actors are
playing. Yeah.
Nice one.
Okay, so this is the chart for right now, for 12 o'clock, so it's a couple of minutes ago. So I'd just like to look at the chart.
That's good.
And so what we're doing now is really we are talking. So the sun in Gemini, we're having a conversation, and we're talking about the finer details of being a Scorpio. As my, oh, thank you, as my title is that Scorpios get a bad rap. And that's not the case. So here we are talking with the Virgo ascendant. So that's our primary concern right now. And the emotional connection that people have with Scorpio is so intense and misrepresented, like really, really misrepresented. So was it that one? Okay.
Sorry about this.
Mercury's still stationary, as you can see.
There we go. Right,
okay.
I'll just stop fiddling.
It's fine. So Scorpio is a fixed water sign. So being a fixed sign, they are very determined and can slightly be stubborn.
It's hard to let go of things. We like to really immerse ourselves in something for a long time.
Yeah. And how much of a contradiction? Sorry, how much is a contradiction that it's hard to let go, but it's really the sign of.
Yeah, it's water, so it's fluid.
And it's the sign of letting go, like the trans. Oh my God, I love
transformation, transfiguration, all the things that are associated with that phoenix rising. Things just get destroyed and then we rise up and start again.
But as a fixed sign, we don't want to let go of any of it. So we'll talk later on about the there's certain types of Scorpio, and you will be able to get the gist of it's fixed, it doesn't want to let go, but eventually it transforms and becomes something entirely different. So the traditional ruler of Scorpio is Mars. So we've got that the vibrant, fiery, youthful, exciting energy.
But it's nocturnal Mars, so it's sometimes the underworld or the darker parts of that, so that energy is actually really coming from underneath. Whereas Mars rules Aries as well, and Aries is the daytime version.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I see. I don't do a lot of the night-day stuff, so
well, it does make a difference, doesn't it? And sometimes, as a Scorpio or a Scorpio energy, it can feel very, very much like it's coming from the gut, down in the genitals. It's coming really from your base.
That root chakra.
Whereas the Aries is associated with the head. It's much more, I hear something, I'm going there. So Mars is a very powerful planet, and it's a great force in our sign.
So Pluto only obviously took rulership after it was discovered. So what was that, 1930? So it would have taken a couple of years as well, wouldn't it, to actually
for sure,
to give it that. But very relevant works. You know, that underworld. So the night version of Mars, that's that underworld, and you know, I like, even though it's the root chakra, I still think there's something just so core about Scorpio, and and now moving into the 8th house matters as well. You know, going into that underworld, getting to the root core issue of things. So
and 8th house, of course, is about our transition. So 7th is relationship and who we team up with. But the 8th is often when we lose something or we join up with them, so we actually merge.
So
it's associated with intimacy and sex, and that merging, that union, that fusion. But it can also be shared taxes. So it's traditionally a place of burden. It's the 8th is not an easy place when we've got transits coming through the 8th. We often have to be careful with our money, and we need to be aware that we'll be dealing with grief and things that are lost, and processing that.
You just actually said what I was going to ask you about, where does the other people's money come into it, and it's that,
so because it's
next
second,
to the 7th.
Other people's money being the partner, and then you're moving to something closer. You know, you buy a house together, so you take out a mortgage. That's one way of looking at the 8th. But it's also across the
Taurus Scorpio axis
from the 2nd house, which is about your resources, and so therefore we think of it as other people's resources,
and stock markets, and
okay,
so lots of others, money matters. Okay, so let's go to the next one.
And the underworld, of course, is drugs and brothels and all sorts of things that are made sort of evil by our cultures and by our societies.
Absolutely, by our culture. I mean, you look at the Norse culture. You know, their version of hell is actually a good place.
Right.
Yeah. Like Hela is a goddess, and so she's got lots of. Well, there we go. Another aspect of the female Scorpio. They've got that bad rap because of the patriarchy.
Exactly.
So they've taken the goddess and made her sleazy. So, this brown lizard archetype was a new one for me. I only just learned this yesterday, but I totally agree.
Yeah, so it's like a sort of devolved version of the scorpion. The scorpion's got a bad rap as it is, but go down to the brown lizard and you're really, skimming down into the gutter.
So we had more words. So we had not only sleazy drug dealers, we've got pimps.
People who have got a sense of being wanting to sort of make the most of, survive themselves, and so they'll kind of step all over you, and they're quite ruthless and relentlessly murderous or thieving or whatever. So there's a lot of, it depends where we're at in the Scorpion sign and what's the planet's ruling and how it's interacting with other planets. But it can start, your life can feel like it starts under that influence, or you wander into that landscape at certain transits.
Yeah, they're the ones that are really fucked up on drugs. Okay. So then we get to the Scorpion, which is, where everybody thinks it's just the one, but no, there's 4. So the Scorpio is calculating. We've got the investigator, gets to the core of an issue. What else do we have here? The detective. Works with the underworld, the mob, and gangsters as well.
And so a lot of corruption. I mean, I always think the Scorpion story is there in every soap opera on the television at the moment, don't you? It's all about sort of people doing each other in, a lot of sexual kind of connotations and power issues and so on. So it's very captivating, that whole Scorpion feel. It's a very intriguing thing, and the whole there's a lot of crime stories, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So the investigator, the detective, becomes the hero of the story.
Yeah.
And they've often got a romance in the side.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, they always do. They always do. They always do.
And it feels really hot. Like it feels very
passionate. Yeah. Oh, awesome.
So that's the film industry taking advantage of that. Of that energy, tapping into it.
And then we got to the eagle.
So lovely stage of the Scorpion journey.
It is, and you know what? I dare say that there's a lot of people that are probably going to watch this or are associated with Lifetime to Level Up, because it is that type of energy where you are self-evolving. You know, you are taking the time and effort to investigate investigate issues and get to the core of an issue so you can move past that and evolve from that. There was the negative one as well, was the like an actual eagle. You know, they're strategic and they have deadly skills, so they can hone in on something from a distance and still get that thing. You know, I watch the eagles here and they're just amazing. Like from, you know, so high up, and they'll just so determination.
So death, all these sorts of things are coming up a lot, and that's the eagle is a powerful creature. It's understood to be one of the more powerful birds in that species, and it's feared by other birds and by animals. You know, so I had a flock of chooks taken by eagles where I live. Yeah, so they're very you know, like you say, it's that energy of the ability to go above things and see what's going on, but actually select what it is that you want to let go of, what you want to end its life and take it for yourself. Take that energy for yourself.
Survival skills.
That's it.
Survival instinct. And then we have the phoenix.
Beautiful.
Wisdom, wise and evolved. Who would they be? Did I see that maybe Gandhi had some...
I can't recall, but there's certainly those sort of creatures, you know, those sort of human examples of this ability to be detached, the ability to sort of rise above your own reactions. And really that's the challenge for a Scorpion, because we're so sensitive. There's lots and lots of parts of the Scorpion energy that can feel overwhelming and uncontrollable, and it can be a lifetime effort to work through ways and techniques and methods to be able to quieten the mind and the heart and the soul and the body enough to feel, oh, well, that used to happen and I'd react, but now I don't. So that's where we're at when we get to that phoenix. So we're actually rising up and becoming a completely clean and pure form of this. It's quite a spiritual interpretation of it, but it's beautiful,
But that's the point, though, isn't it? Really, like we're here, we're learning, we're listening, we're doing. So it's absolutely about evolution. Even just the gentleman that we were just listening to, Mark Jones, was it?
Fantastic.
And he was saying, you know, it's not until we get to our late 30s, early 40s that you know, we have that cognitive ability to see the pieces and to understand the greater picture.
And stop blaming other people for the things that go wrong. Because that's a big part of becoming spiritually aware. You know, we're all here for a purpose, and the chart can show you what your purpose is and help you to understand it and guide you. So,
And often, I just had the analogy of you know, we have transits that can be difficult, whether they're Pluto, 8th house, whatever, but essentially, you know, when we're in that moment where we are either distraught or, you know, in the depths and the darkness, a seed must be in a dark place to grow. You know, is the pain we're feeling our seed cracking? Like, is that, you know, the beginning of our growth when we are in those moments?
That's right. No, there's a lot of psychology in this, and certainly that was an understanding of the Jungian method, is that we need to pull back the layers and go right down to find the jewel that is actually hanging down there in the dark and in the depths. And that journey that's often spoken about, you know, the hero's journey, there's a great book around that, is always about, correct, it's always about that search. And Joseph Campbell was a mythologist who compared mythology, so these are common traits in every myth, every culture. And so we often have to go through a lot of grief and pain and emotionally undo ourselves, literally unbutton ourselves and make ourselves naked to be able to find what's the essence inside, which is not kind of something that our culture encourages us to do.
No, it doesn't. No, but we do. We do. We want you to get naked and raw and be you as best you can. Okay, so here we get to some keywords, and I suppose this is where we get our bad reputation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, occult, mediumship, like that, literally talking to dead people, looking through the veil. Halloween is when the veil between the worlds is its thinnest.
Scorpion story.
Yeah. Again, intense emotions. So we were just discussing the fact that having a Scorpio moon can be the hardest aspect to deal with, because those intense emotions, they're you're not trained or taught, or it's not even discussed, the role of emotions.
And there's all sorts of combinations of how that's expressed in different people, but it can come across to others as being very, what they say, abrasive, so that you find it hard to deal with interactions with people, and so you quickly react to it to settle it so that you feel safe again. And so that sometimes it can feel like a coldness. So you actually don't interact with people and people think you're rude, so you don't have the ability, because there's such a strong emotion coming up, to just overcome that emotion and be nice, So the Scorpion moon will often simply say it as it is, and people don't like that.
No.
They like diplomacy. The Libran moon is much nicer, and Pisces moon can be gorgeous as well, and many other positions of the moon are much easier. In a dignity sense, the moon is in its fall, and so it's really not in a strong place when it's in Scorpio. And so the challenge is to learn and to find the key for yourself, to learn ways to be able to conduct yourself with others that aren't going to burn bridges. It's a lifelong lifelong passage as well.
Absolutely. So I know with readings, a lot of times we have people come to us that have experienced the negative side of Scorpio, and so we're looking then at sexual trauma, murder or deceit, jealousy, obsession,
blind rage. So the sexual trauma side can be associated with a Pluto aspect, and so it's and you can also see it in
the dark side of Mars would be rape as well.
That's exactly. But when Pluto travelled through Scorpio, that was when we started to really begin to talk about rape openly and have rape crisis centres coming out.
Interesting.
And domestic violence became more prominent, and so we actually saw a lot more liberation for usually mainly women, but boys as well, to talk about their experiences with incest and with rape as children. So it can have a really devastating effect that if there isn't the ability to be validated and to be heard. So anybody who's had that sexual trauma and has that in their chart, it's really important to find people who have the skill to listen and allow you to simply process that.
I'm just having a quick look to see when that started. Yeah,
so it was in the 90s, 80s, 90s. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, okay, all right. So, so if you were born from November 1983, November 1983 onwards through to...
It moved pretty quickly through Scorpio because of the elongation.
But it really did pave the way, didn't it?
Absolutely. And it was also associated with the AIDS epidemic, which brought out a lot more talk about sex between men, anal sex and so on. So we started to actually see the words and understand the types of relationships, the variation in sexual relationships much more vividly in our societies. So finished in 95.
Yeah, up to January 95. It might have ducked back in there, but essentially it was up to 95. So,
Yeah, so 12 years, which is pretty quick for Pluto to move through a sign.
It is, isn't it?
Given that it's been in Capricorn since 2008.
And 8, yeah, absolutely. But even interestingly enough, you just said boys as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's so important for us to recognise sexual trauma. It's not just female.
Absolutely. But when it went through Sagittarius, there was a whole lot of stuff about
which was the next period.
Yeah, the one after. But that conversation opened the way for the church's indiscretions to be talked about as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of those, that leadership stuff. So
and Pluto in Capricorn then has been those inquiries and those big royal commissions into all of this. So that's a function of Capricorn is to sort of take it on as a system, as an institution, the governing body, the authority. And yes, hasn't it been successful? And we can thank Julia Gillard in Australia for that work.
Excellent,
because that was one of her platforms, and she did manage to get that Royal Commission into child sexual abuse in the churches through in that terrible time where she was actually subjected to such terrible sexism.
Such sexism.
Yeah. And what's his name? Tony Abbott is a Scorpion son. So there's an interesting example of these negative characteristics at work. He was such a conniving, strategic man who had no tolerance at all for for this diversity.
Well, while we're on this path, Pluto moving into Aquarius, there's going to be massive changes in our social structures. I think more humanitarian. We're hoping,
and more innovation, insight, and future thinking.
Futuristic,
which, we can see that with all these new renewables, and they're aiming to try and clean up the climate.
But look at coal. Coal's an underworld.
Coal is the mining, which is associated with Pluto.
Yeah, so even that.
And Saturn rules the mines as well.
And Saturn's going to be in Pisces at the same in the same month. So heads up for March of 2023.
And 2024 was when Pluto really settles into Aquarius.
Get moving. Okay, all right, that was a massive tangent. All right, the positive the positive stuff of Scorpio. Okay, so willpower, intense drive, it that instinct, but like the need to understand things. I have Mercury in Scorpio in the 8th. Yes, in the 8th. And I love nothing better than to dive into something so I can understand it at a cellular level. Like I live and breathe astrology, and I have for my whole life.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So
it's a great example. Another good example, one time we were building something on a property that I owned, and the darkness came, and I wouldn't stop. I kept going. I put a torch and then shone the headlights of the car so I could finish the job. And the other people had gone and had their tucker and were sitting back with the wine, and it was like, no,
determined. I'm determined. Yeah, so
it can be annoying to some people.
Yeah,
and a lot of determination and fixed sort of willpower.
Look, the transformation, the easy transformation, the choice to let go and move through to evolve. That's one of the really good things about
very
it.
Positive.
Okay.
So in the body,
as far as the body, now right now in the sky, being the 7th of June 2022, Hygeia, which is the health and well-being asteroid, which I've fallen in love with.
And is a preventative health asteroid.
Yes,
it's about
well-being.
It's about being ready to, change your routine for the sake of getting better.
And it's in Scorpio right now. So, what do we need to do to what needs to change? What needs to transform for us to be a better version of ourselves? And also when we have enough self-care to know that something needs to change because it's not working for us.
So when we're self-aware.
Self-awareness is a big one.
I noticed we left out blood at the bottom here.
Oh,
goodness me. Blood.
Yeah,
that's a very Scorpion element.
So we've got birth and death, sexual reproduction, prostate, colon, bladder, all of the bodily fluids, so semen, sweat, urine, blood, the elimination system, Taurus loves food, you know, good food goes in and good poop comes out, which is that detoxification as well.
It is, yeah.
Of
Elimination.
elimination. So
and cleansing, yeah, that's it. So detoxing can be a very Scorpion thing to do. Yeah, choosing a Scorpion moon to have a fast and to do a detox would be a good plan.
Okay, so straight up, I don't think I've got anything after that one.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to go to back to this one. So tips on, we've talked about the Scorpio moon. What about a Scorpio ascendant?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Scorpio ascendant is often associated with people who are very easily, their charisma is strong. So there's a magnetism, and they can easily move around, knowing that they have this vibe that's acceptable. There's it's the ascending method, the use of the ascendant in a Scorpio feel is much more about being able to be sensitive and perhaps know how to be in a situation and stay in the situation. It's not, it's got that lovely quality. I'm thinking of one person I know who's very strong in no matter what's going on, she stays with that situation until it feels as though that's everything done there. Yeah, and she's got that Scorpio ascendant. And it's so attractive a quality to not move on and to actually want to engage and really connect with people.
I'm thinking of someone else with a Scorpio ascendant, and they're intense and there's a certain devotion to the moment.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that devotion to the moment. And when you go to that person, you know you're going to be heard and cared about. Because
the ascendant, of course, is the part of the chart that tells us how you go about your life, like what methods you use, what your style is, if you like. And so being Scorpio, it has an emotional content to it. And it's often asked to deal with these issues of death and birth and trauma and so on.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the lady I know that is a medium. With a Scorpio ascendant, so straight up like that intuitive.
And this person I know at 19 needed to deal with managing her father's end of life process, who died early.
Wow.
So it was a terrible experience because other parts of the chart weren't happy with that, but overall it gave her a depth of knowledge at a young age that is characteristic of Scorpio. There can be that real sense of the Scorpio can manage stuff and deal with heavy, direct, emotional content, whereas other signs will kind of cave in.
I love that managing. There's just that management quality. Right. Pluto and Mars both very strong. Very strong and stable. And then we've got the sun. That's just the sun shines its light on you, and that's
us. Loving to talk about
it. And get to the nitty gritty.
That's right.
Yeah, I love nothing better than to have. No, I don't love having difficult conversations with people, but I feel able to be present when someone's in a difficult emotion without having to take it on, just listening, being there.
It's also beautiful. I mean, the combinations are always there in the chart. You would never find a chart with all the planets in Scorpio, so there's got to be some other aspects in there. So the Scorpio allows that openness and that ability to sort of connect deeply. And it's not for everyone, so you tend to find Scorpio sun has many very special friends. But then there's something else, and for you, that moon in Sagittarius is always something optimistic to say to that person, or even just a comforting kind of, and that's enough. So it really depends. The sun depends on where's the moon, where's the other, what are kind of aspects are happening against that.
Scorpio stuff gives you just a beautiful depth. Depth is, I think, is a really good way to put it.
But it can be channeled in all sorts of ways. Like my mother was Scorpio and she had two sisters, so I had grown up with 3 Scorpio women in my kind of young mind, and they all channeled it so differently. My mother's thing was very devotional, very much about faith. I mean, they were all born in that sort of family which had a belief system, but she was very strongly in that. One other one was much more sort of almost business-like and worked in the TAB in the gambling industry, and she was sort of much more cultivated with it. And the third one really battled because her husband was a predator, and so she didn't have a happy life, and so she was known for turning up when somebody died and clearing out the house.
Wow.
Yeah, that was one of the things she loved to do, and she just kind of loved that atmosphere of change and death and so on. So,
I love a good
all of those, there's just so many different kaleidoscope versions of how that Scorpio sun can manifest.
Yeah. Just a quick one on my analogy of Venus in Scorpio is absolutely a strong woman who is generally in fishnets and big black boots. They don't have to be a dominatrix, but I always think of fishnets and big black boots with Venus in Scorpio.
Yeah, they're very strong. They feel really strong sexual attraction. But, I've known those who have Venus and Pluto together, relationships become a bit of a source of change, That's where that comes from. Remember, Venus is about relationship. So it is about being attractive, but it's about how we relate. So, of course, anybody with Scorpio in Venus Venus in Scorpio rather, is going to have the need to go deep in a relationship. And the fishnets are a way to sort of go deep in a sexual sense. And that might be the young version of that, Venus. But later it'll be more perhaps going into sort of self-help or getting into some kind of group that helps her to, or him to sort of explore that.
Okay, and Mars in Scorpio, very strategic and general quality, like
pretty strong.
I suppose
fighting, arguing, battling, surviving.
Battles. Mercury, we've spoken about. That's just like the investigator. A little bit of a detective. I wouldn't quite say nerd, but definitely an intense investigator. What else?
Well, then you've got
when we're getting out to
the social planets
stuff,
with Jupiter and Saturn. So Jupiter in Scorpio, you'd feel as though that's going to be dealing with your, a more society-wide issue around that sexual freedom, that ability to sort of, work with the emotions and so on. So people who are working in psychotherapy perhaps and that kind of thing would probably really flourish with their Venus, their Jupiter in Scorpio would flourish in that kind of environment.
I know of two separate people. So one has got Jupiter in the 8th and one has got Jupiter in Scorpio. Both of them are amazing with other people's money.
There you go.
Yeah. Both of them are in either the stock market. One's in the stock market, and one's just an advisor, and does really well with other people's money.
So that also requires research and a kind of watchful. There's a very observant quality about Scorpion.
Yes.
Now think about the Scorpion animal itself. It lives in the dark, and apparently it's turquoise. If you shine
bioluminescent. Yeah, they're beautiful.
But they live in the dark, so they're always watching out to see, they're guarding.
Who's going to hurt me?
Yeah.
Even that. Who's going to hurt me?
That's right. Yeah. Sensitive, big word.
Wow. We've got scorpions here. They're just itty bitty ones, and so often they'll be like a Scorpio in the house. Yay! Not just me. And then so
Saturn in Scorpio. I just need to mention that because that can be quite tough. Just on itself, because sometimes that Saturn is such a strong workhorse, and the Scorpion Saturn is kind of compulsive and compelled and obsessive, and so that can can lead to a great deal of achievement, depending again on what other aspects are there and what kind of supports that. But it could also be something that drains or feels as though it depletes. Depends where we're at in the cycles.
And just because I know that Meg's here and we were speaking about, and Uranus is exalted in Scorpio.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and I know, like for example, Meg's is in the 2nd house. So her point of genius is becoming comfortable with her intensity.
And use your emotions to imagine new ways to express yourself. I would have thought. It's a great resource actually to have Uranus in the 2nd house would give you always seeing things a little differently. Very interested in astrology and these sorts of other ways of interpreting phenomena, because Uranus is always different, always wants to work its own path.
And finally, we've got the generation, was it not 83 to 95 of Pluto in Scorpio?
Yeah, but don't miss the Neptune in Scorpio generation as well, which was
Neptune,
which was the 50s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was my, my sort of timing, and I know it was associated with Neptune in Libra was very much the flower power and liberation, and then came the sexual revolution with Neptune coming through. So a lot more of a.
I'm just going to get that.
Kind of a generational will to explore, polygamy and doing things differently, not needing to get married in order to have kids, and be much more of a sort of expressive person in your own body. Divorce has started to happen, so the ideals change. Neptune's all about our consciousness and what we idealise, and in Scorpio it allowed it to sort of spread a lot more because the emotions came into it, whereas it had been in Libra it was much more of a mental sort of thing. So the music is and theatre and those kind of things, if you watch the trends there, they'll tell you where Neptune is, because Neptune's associated with that kind of theatre, because that's romance and imagination and how we're expressing that in our culture.
Wow, I'll have to go back and have a look at that.
Look at the movies from the 50s as opposed to the movies from when Neptune then moved to Sag and then to Capricorn, and now it's
Pisces. Now we've got like CGI and AI and all crazy things.
But Twilight and other things too, so sort of more of a kind of otherworldly stuff in Pisces.
Yeah, so I was thinking of Avatar actually when I said that.
Absolutely.
Avatar. So and then.
But yes, the Pluto
in Scorpio. So what do you think they're going to have, like more of a sexual freedom, or
Pluto in Scorpio, or Pluto? What are you looking at?
Pluto in Scorpio, like they're just going to have a different understanding about sexuality.
If Pluto came along and conjuncted with your Sun, then you're a pretty powerful person.
See, Pluto went over everything.
Power is such a big element in Scorpio.
Plutonium.
And it's that power that can be quite sort of malicious, try and sort of push other people out of the way to get ahead. But it can also be that power of drawing people together. It depends again on the nature of that character, all the other elements in the chart, how it's used. But we do see that when the Pluto in Scorpio would say be with the moon or with the sun, it would distort the relationships with the father or the mother. So there'd be an abuse usually. There'd be some kind of sense of I'm having my power taken from me by that other parent. And again, find a good listener, find a counsellor. Let them work with you on the feelings that you had about yourself before it happened, and try and remember what that was like and what you envisaged your life was going to be like, and try and bring that energy back into life. It's often we get stuck at that point, but we need to sort of be able to bring back the powers of our lives before trauma happened and put it through into the future, so that we can accept that the trauma happened, but we're not ruled by that. We see ourselves past and future around that trauma.
It's hard,
really
isn't it? Yeah. So this has been amazing. If I can't think of anything else to sort of put in, we'll talk about this one. So as you know, I am Bridget from Lifetime to Level Up and lifefromthegroundup.com.au, and there's my email, but we've also got Astro Tessa, and you're available from astrotessa.com.
That's right.
And your services?
Yeah, well, my services include counselling, because that's my training, and I also do a fair bit of spiritual care. So I work in hospitals and also over the phone, supporting people at, really helping people to feel as though they can take care of themselves. Because often when we're giving in our lives, we need to replenish our energies and charge our batteries, and you can't give from an empty cup. So a lot of the work that I do is about supporting people to really understand themselves and how to survive you know, the challenges that come, and also enjoy the privileges and the opportunities we get in life.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on my website and have a look. It'd be lovely to meet you.
Okay, and you know where to find me. So thank you so much for, if you've got this far, thank you so much for watching. And you know where to find me. So we'll stop that share.
Yep.
And stop the recording.